It's been an eventful year in cricket, but for one final time in 2019, for us at My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live, and for Team India, it's a final throw of the dice. And whether you talk about dice or coins, at least as far as the coin is concerned, it's gone in India's favour. Just a quick reminder, yes, India have finally won a toss. And of course, the result of the toss was a no-brainer, deciding to field first, with dew going to play a major factor. But for the moment, let's not talk about the dew. Let's welcome our guests in the studio, Joy Bhattacharya and Simon Dool. Welcome, gentlemen.
Well, thank you. If you're going to win one, not a bad one to win. The last one, the deciding one, finally win a toss.
And of course, the venue. It's not just the last one. It's not just to decide it. It's the venue where we've all talked about the dew, and it is going to be a factor. Normally, Virat doesn't make a big deal about it. No. He said big factor.
Yeah, he did. He said it was going to play a big part, and obviously they've trained. They would have had guys down at the ground yesterday afternoon, yesterday evening from the Indian side, and just, they would have been practicing too, I think, Joy, with wet balls, just in case. You hope you win the toss, but just in case, you've got to practice with that as well.
Yeah, they would be putting the ball in there and celebrating. And I like the way that we are always prepared. Look at us in the studio, you know. It's a Christmassy feeling, last this thing of the year. We couldn't have a Christmas tree, so Gautam decided to dress up as one.
I know, that's good.
And that's exactly the kind of celebration that we want out.
From head to toe.
I've got a bit of green just behind me over my shoulder, that's nice.
Socks, belt, jacket, I like it. I think it's good.
Perfect. Not a fan, perfect way to say Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
If you had told me, I would have worn my dark glasses. My dark glasses with power would have just worked easier. You know, you can dim the lights, but that would be... I
think that's our goal for next year. If we're going to have a Christmas, New Year's wish, a New Year's goal is to get Joy into some bright colours next year, IPL time. That's our goal.
Even if it's not Christmas, we'll make that our New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Jeez.
Are you up for the challenge?
Look, I'm just putting it out to everyone out there. If you think that those socks work, I think people need to vote on those socks. I think the nation needs to know what everyone thinks about those socks. I think it
all right, fine, go on. Hashtag Cricbuzz Live. These are the socks you're talking about. Yeah. It's just purely for Christmas. I do wear it once in a while, but to go with the jacket, to go with the spirit. And of course, let's not digress too much because we've got lots to chat about on the show. Let's just give you a quick reminder. One solitary change for India. This is because of that little back injury, a back niggle for Deepak Chahar. It's an ODI debut. He got his cap earlier today. Navdeep Saini comes in and certainly been exciting talent and a good no-pressure game in a sense, especially the fact that Navdeep Saini will bowl with a drier ball. He'll be glad about that.
Yeah, I like him. I think he's a really talented young quick bowler and one of many in India at the moment. But a great opportunity for him today. As you said, a dry ball on a surface. It's not going to do much for him. It's going to be relatively flat. It'll be tough work. But I think he's an exciting prospect, and I really like him. So looking forward to him unleashing. Hopefully he's relaxed and just gets that pace up.
Now, speaking of mental relaxation, we saw different kinds of reactions. Sometimes before an IPL auction, you can want to show your wares. Sometimes afterwards. We're going to chat about that in a bit. But let's just stick with the West Indies 11 and talk about the dew factor briefly. The West Indies have gone unchanged, so just a quick look at that team. They haven't brought back Hayden Walsh. Kari Pair perhaps maybe a little bit more experience, a little bit more control in case the ball is wet, and he is going to be bowling
easier
at that
to bowl left arm orthodox with a wet ball. I mean, although it's not easy, it's easier than bowling right arm leg spin with a wet ball. So I can understand it's a just in case we lose the toss kind of a decision, I think.
Now remember, the last time we had our My 11 Circle expert advice, Simon Dool was spot on. We asked about who you'd make captain. He made Rohit Sharma captain. He went against what we thought. Both Joy and I agreed on Virat Kohli there because it was Vizag. Now remember, this is a ground where Virat Kohli has not been able to buy a run. Maybe that's how things work in reverse. So the question today is, who do you think is going to score the most points? It doesn't necessarily have to be the one you'll make captain. You could, but who do you think is going to score the most points? Will it again be a batsman, a specialist, or an all-rounder?
Oh, dear me. Look, I'm going to go with a bowler. I'm going to go with a bowler today. India are bowling first, dry, first up. Stick with Kuldeep. Good game last game. Stick with Kuldeep.
Kuldeep to get the most points. Yep. Interesting.
He's going with Kuldeep. I'll go with, what the hell, Rohit Sharma again. I'm behind the curve, I know, but hell,
all right, we have three different names because I'm going to go with the reverse psychology because when we built up Virat Kohli at Vizag and said he's the king of Vizag, he scored a first ball duck. Today, I think he's got, what, 35 runs in 4 innings?
31 in 5.
31 in 5, yeah. It's a crazy record. He's going to get 100 today chasing. So there you go. Virat Kohli is my pick for the most number of points. But coming back to that due factor, it's not often, as you said, Kohli mentions it. We know the history. We know teams, India, when they were defending 382, and he mentioned that at the toss. Yeah. They had a bit of a hard time even defending that. Have a look at the results.
Yeah, against England, that one, wasn't it? 15 runs defending 380. You start to get a little bit twitchy when that sort of thing happens. Obviously, they blew Sri Lanka away. It's tough. I mean, I know these day-night fixtures, you've got sides winning the toss and bowling. They don't always win the game, but the dew does play a big role in it. And sometimes it's just the quality of opposition that you're up against that can't really compete with a quality Indian side. And that's probably half the battle. I worry about the fact that the toss dictates the nature of the game, and that's my biggest issue with this.
Yeah, let's go back to defining. How do you define a sport? Technically, you define a sport as where the conditions are equal for both teams, and here the conditions, if the outright favour crosses that 10%, and it does cross. In places like Cuttack, it goes far beyond that. You have to compensate for it. But again, as he said, that doesn't mean you'll win every match chasing, but that means it's just going to be that much tougher to win batting first. And therefore, I think really in places like Cuttack, you're just pushing that and saying that it becomes a lottery. And the less the game is a lottery and the more it is a game of skill, the better of the game is.
Football being the perfect example, dimensions are the same. Yes, you'll have the crowd factor in a home game, no matter what you're talking about.
Which is why F1 gets into this trouble. And they're saying that they need to regulate the engines and all that, because they feel that a car's engine superiority should not make a difference in somebody winning consistently all the time. That's why F1 sits on the edge, where something like football, basketball, they all sit slap in the middle,
The old talk about the horse and the jockey.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's the same thing again.
Which one it is. But again, in terms of a precedent, we did mention on our show the other day that maybe television timings, maybe about appointment viewing, that you don't want to tinker with the timings. But we've had a precedent more than once. The one that comes to mind, 2017, Dharamshala Mohali, 2 ODI starting at 11:30.
Yeah.
The one at Vizag, because of going down south, started at 1:30. No problem.
Yeah, and
there's enough information out there.
As long as it's decided early enough, and if you're going to play one-day internationals at this time of year, then I say, play a day game. If you're going to play in certain areas where the dew is such a massive
and a Sunday
factor, and on a Sunday, on a weekend, play a day game. I know it's going to be warm, but it's nowhere near as warm as it is in April, May, June. So it's still cool enough to play a day game, and there's nothing wrong. I love a one-day game. Rather than a day-night game. You're going back to the old style, I know, where the lights don't come on, but, on a Sunday with work tomorrow, on a Monday, everyone's home at 7 o'clock at night, 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. You can take the families, you can have a great day out. I love a day game of cricket.
And the weather is good. I mean, Cuttack, not too far away from Kolkata. It's winter. It's actually good weather for a day game.
No, I fully agree. I fully agree with this point. Again, they're going to go back. They're going to listen to you and going to do this again, because you're the man who decides what happens in cricket next year. In any case, so
I know television numbers aren't quite as good during day games, and that's proven. But at the end of the day, you want a fair contest, and I think if you're going to play at this time of the year, then a fair contest is possibly a day game where the toss does not dictate. Now, let's say India had lost the toss, and an unfair advantage ensued. And I mean, I know we're being professors here, but they lost the game. They're all going to blame the dew. They're all going to say, oh, well, it was too dewy, we couldn't hold on to the ball. That's going to be the case. Well, they've won the toss, so we're not going to hear too much about it.
Yeah, but I mean...
Also, sorry. To continue on the point about the day game, I mean, you're having a situation where if you put that pressure every time and say on the venue that, this is the dew factor, take it away. If you have that, there's enough difficulty organizing a match without you having to bargain for something that you really have no control over. Remember one more thing, they have very few day-night matches through the year. So the ability of the curators in Cuttack to say, for example, look after the ground during a day-night game is always under stress. You don't have that many people out there. So that's the basic problem. This is not the 1K day you're playing 35, 40 day-night matches a year. Something or the other is always on. You have that system right there. And these are all issues.
And in fact, the last time I think we had a proper day game was because the lights were not ready in Kanpur. So, I mean, there are different reasons for having a day game rather than the right reason to say that, look, it's not ideal post 6 p.m. Let's get it knocked off before that.
Look, I agree. And some times of the year, you've got to play day-night games in India because it's too hot. It's ridiculous. It's oppressive, some of those afternoon temperatures. So at this time of the year, though, I mean, it's nice. It's actually pleasant really pleasant. It's not too hot at all. So I think a day game on a weekend is, and it's nice just leading up to Christmas. You don't want to take away people's night times.
Don't keep reminding him about Christmas for a moment.
Sorry.
But we did start briefly about this discussion. We said before the auction there were some players who were wanting to show their wares on this very show, whether Sheldon Cottrell made enough of an impression, etc., etc. Now, after the auction, we saw Glenn Maxwell has already celebrated with a big innings. And what about Sheldon Cottrell and Shimron Hetmyer? Both of them will be in action today. And have a look at these top 5 buys: Cummins, Maxwell, Morris, Cottrell, Coulter-Nile. Now, we've talked about Maxwell. He's already played a big innings. Cummins won't have an option at the moment. But Sheldon Cottrell today, him and Shimron Hetmyer, what mentally is going through their minds? Okay, we've done our job, now we can relax.
Look, I think they'll play better just because they're relaxed. They have nothing to prove anymore. It's done. The job is done. They'll go there and say, okay, we need to have a great cricket game, prepare, keep myself physically fit, keep moving. It's done. It's out of the way. And I think that's the same true also for players who've not qualified. Okay, we did our best. We showed our wares. It didn't work. We didn't get there in the auction. Time to move on, time to get on with our life. So for both people, I think they would have been far more tense, whether they got selected or didn't get selected now. I mean, they're free.
And the man who made the statement, Shai Hope, unfortunately, we thought maybe there was a place for him. There wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't a place for a lot of people. And I think that was it's a small auction compared to the full ones that will take place. Is it next year the full one goes back again, or the year after? But it was a smaller auction. And so a lot of players that you probably thought could be picked up weren't picked up.
I want to come in here and say, like, you guys have been watching it. Nobody's heard what you had to say about it. What for you were the highlights of the auction? You gentlemen need to tell us.
The two who were benched, yes?
I think the all-rounders are the key for me when it comes to the auction prices and the disparity between the low and the high. When I look at this here, Pat Cummins, I can understand. He was the best horse in the auction. For mine, he was he was by Frankel out of Winks, if you know your horse racing, by the best stallion out of the best mare. He was the #1 buy at the auction for mine. So he was always going to go for big money. But it was the difference between the likes of James Neesham at 50 lakh and Glenn Maxwell at 10.75 crore. To me, what are you buying? What are you looking at? What are these teams looking at? Well, Chris Morris at 10 crore, terrific all-rounder. But is he that much of a difference between he and James Neesham, or he and Chris Woakes, for instance? I don't mind Sam Curran's price, but I think they were all around about that 4 to 5 crore. Maxwell, Morris, Curran, Woakes, Neesham. I thought they should have been a lot closer together. So to me, it's what are teams looking to buy, and are they just getting pushed because someone else wants them? Or, do they have a ceiling? If you've gone to the auction and you've said Chris Morris's ceiling is 10 crore, I'm not sure you're in the right bracket. When you say that I could buy a Neesham for 150 lakh. I'm not sure that they're in the right sort of frame of mind there. What are you trying to buy?
But I think what Simon's last point was spot on. I think we can't look at the numbers in isolation. I know throughout the season we'll start evaluating runs versus rupees or wickets versus rupees, and we'll try and assess them. But the point is, a big price tag is usually a result of more than one person wanting them, and a small price tag doesn't necessarily undervalue you. It just means that nobody particularly needed that. Nobody needed a Neesham at that point.
And it's not the player's fault. I'm never have a go at the players, because they're just getting paid whatever someone's bid for them. So it's never their fault. And I'm not saying it is. It's nothing to do with that. It's just that two teams wanted the same guy at the same time. So don't get me wrong by thinking I'm having a go at the players here. All those guys are terrific all-rounders. I just think that the difference between there in price far outweighs the difference in ability, which I think most of those guys are very similar and will offer you a very similar thing.
In fact, for auction strategy, one of the rules we learned was, other than, unless a player happens to be a statistical freak, and there are very few of those, like Malinga is a statistical freak, take him out of the equation. The rest of it, do not bid for players, bid for positions.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying, if I'm saying fast bowler, okay, fast bowler who can bowl at the death, it has to be that. You can't say Pat Cummins, or you can't say that, because then you're getting yourself stuck into a situation where if you don't get that guy, and you're suddenly stuck, you're going to start bidding unreasonably for players who are not worth it. But you ask yourself, what am I prepared to pay for a fast bowler? Okay, international fast bowler who can bowl at the death. And that's how you go to price it. Yeah. And then if you say Jimmy Neesham, batting all-rounder Jimmy Neesham at 20 times, Glenn Maxwell is not 20 times better than Jimmy Neesham, not under any. So those are the problems that you come across in situations like that.
Yes, so we can keep this discussion going, and I'm sure we will continue it offline as well. But moving track slightly to one of the players who's always been in focus for Team India, Shreyas Iyer. Now have a look at what he's done in the last few games, and you'll think to yourself, maybe he should have been a part of this setup earlier in the year, particularly in the months of June and July, or June in particular. These are his last 4 innings in ODIs, and
clearly a 4-dimensional player. Maybe if you didn't need 3 dimensions, if 3 dimensions didn't work, maybe you needed a 4-dimensional player out there. No, seriously. I mean, I think the Indian team management. I know that a lot of that selection committee is going to go out right now, but they'd probably look at Shreyas Iyer right now and think maybe we missed a trick out there because they went and they backed a horse. And I don't have any problem with Ambati Rayudu, but you back him at a time when he's coming back. He's 33, 34 years old. And they put a lot of pressure on him because they said, you're the guy. And then suddenly he's not there. And I think it was a bit of a mess. And I think, Shreyas is beginning to show us why possibly he should have been there.
Simon Doull had the same expression when we had a discussion about Mohammad Shami the other day, obviously referring to the World Cup semi-final. Yeah. So Shami was missed, and so was Shreyas Iyer.
Yeah, I think they'll learn from this. It's a selection issue.